Welcome back to Ragnar Reads. Today I shall be reading excerpts from Conan the Barbarian, the complete collection. And this was originally published by Robert E. Howard in the 1930s in Weird Tales magazine. If you enjoy what you are hearing, then please like and subscribe for more. And without further ado, we shall get into the first. Cimmeria, a poem. It was gloomy land that seemed to hold all winds and clouds and dreams that shun the sun, with bare boughs rattling in lonesome winds, and the dark woodlands brooding over all, not even lightened by the rare dim sun which made squat shadows out of men. They called it Cimmeria, land of darkness and deep night. It was so long ago and far away, I have forgotten the very name men called me. The axe and flint-tipped spear are like a dream, and hunts and wars are like shadows. I recall only the stillness of that somber land, the clouds that piled forever on the hills, the dimness of the everlasting woods. Cimmeria, land of darkness and the night. The Phoenix and the Sword. Chapter 1. Know, O Prince, that between the years when the oceans drank Atlantis and the gleaming cities and the years of the rise of the sons of Arius, there was an age undreamed of, when shining kingdoms lay spread across the world like blue mantles beneath the stars. Numidia, Ophir, Berinthia, Hyboria, Zamora with its dark-haired women and towers of spider-haunted mystery, Zingara with its chivalry, Koth that bordered on the pastoral lands of Shem, Stygia with its shadow-guarded tombs, Hyrcania with whose riders wore steel and silk and gold, but the proudest kingdom of the world was Aquilonia, reigning supreme in the dreaming west. Hither come Conan the Cimmerian, black-haired, sullen-eyed, sword in hand, a thief, a reaver, a slayer, with gigantic melancholies and gigantic mirth, to tread the jeweled thrones of the earth under his sandaled feet. The Numidian Chronicles. Over shadowy spires and gleaming towers lay the ghostly darkness and silence that runs before dawn. Into a dim alley, one of a veritable labyrinth of mysterious winding ways, 4 masked figures came hurriedly from a door, which a dusky hand furtively opened. They spoke not, but went swiftly into the gloom, cloaks wrapped closely about them. As silently as the ghosts of murdered men they disappeared into the darkness. Behind them a sardonic countenance was framed in the partially open door. A pair of evil eyes glittered malevolently in the gloom. "Go into the night, creatures of the night," a voice mocked. "O fools, your doom hounds your heels like a blind dog, and you know it not." The speaker closed the door and bolted it, then turned and went up the corridor, candle in hand. He was a somber giant, whose dusky skin revealed his Stygian blood. He came into an inner chamber, where a tall, lean man in worn velvet lounged like a great lazy cat on a silken couch, sipping wine from a huge golden goblet. "Well, Ascalante," said the Stygian, setting down the candle, "your dupes have slunk into the streets like rats from their burrows. You work with strange tools." "Tools?" replied Ascalante. "Why, they consider me that. For months now, ever since the rebel force summoned me from the southern desert, I have been living in the very heart of my enemies, hiding by day in this obscure house, skulking through dark alleys and darker corridors at night. And I have accomplished what those rebellious nobles could not. Working through them, and through other agents, many of whom have never seen my face, I have honeycombed the empire with sedition and unrest. In short, I, working in the shadows, have paved the downfall of the king who sits throned in the sun. By Mitra, I was a statesman before I was an outlaw." "And these dupes who deem themselves your masters?" "They will continue to think that I serve them until our present task is completed. Who are they to match wits with Ascalante? Volmana, the dwarfish count of Caraban, Grommel, the giant commander of the Black Legion, Dion, the fat baron of Attalus, Rinaldo, the hair-brained minstrel. I am the force which has welded together the steel in each, and by the clay in each I will crush them when the time comes. But that lies in the future. Tonight the king dies." Days ago I saw the Imperial squadrons ride from the city, said the Stygian. They rode to the frontier which the heathen Picts assail. Thanks to the strong liquor which I've smuggled over the border to madden them, Dion's great wealth made that possible, and Volmana made it possible to dispose of the rest of the Imperial troops which remained in the city. Through his princely kin in Numidia, it was easy to persuade King Numa to request the presence of Count Tereko of Pontien, Seneschal of Aquilania, and of course, to do him honor, he'll be accompanied by an imperial escort as well as his own troops and Prospero, King Conan's right-hand man. That leaves only the king's personal bodyguard in the city besides the Black Legion. Through Grommel, I've corrupted a spendthrift officer of that guard and bribed him to lead his men away from the king's door at midnight. Then, with 16 desperate rogues of mine, we enter the palace by a secret tunnel. After the deed is done, even if the people do not rise to welcome us, Grommel's Black Legion will be sufficient to hold the city and the crown. And Dion thinks that the crown will be given to him? Yes, the fat fool claims it by reason of a trace of royal blood. Conan makes a bad mistake in letting men live who still boast descent from the old dynasty, from which he tore the crown of Aquilania. Volmana wishes to be reinstated in royal favor as he was under the old regime, so that he may lift his poverty-ridden estates to their former grandeur. Grommel hates Palantides, commander of the Black Dragons, and desires the command of the whole army. And with all the stubbornness of the Bosnian, alone of all of us, Ronaldo has no personal ambition. He sees in Conan a red-handed, rough-footed barbarian who came out of the north to plunder a civilized land. He idealizes the king whom Conan killed to get the crown, remembering only that he occasionally patronized the arts and forgetting the evils of his reign, and he is making the people forget. Already they openly sing the lament for the king, in which Ronaldo lauds the sainted villain and denounces Conan as the black-hearted savage from the abyss. Conan laughs, but the people snarl. Why does he hate Conan? Poets always hate those in power. To them, perfection is always just beyond the last corner, or beyond the next. They escape the present in dreams of the past and future. Ronaldo is a flaming torch of idealism, rising as he thinks to overthrow a tyrant and liberate the people. As for me, well, a few months ago I had lost all ambition but to raid the caravans for the rest of my life. Now old dreams stir. Conan will die, Dion will mount the throne, then he too will die. One by one, all who oppose me will die, by fire or steel or those deadly wines you know so well how to brew. Ascalante, king of Aquilania, how do you like the sound of it? The Stygian shrugged his broad shoulders. There was a time, he said with unconcealed bitterness, when I too had my ambitions, beside which yours seemed tawdry and childish. To what a state I have fallen! My old-time peers and rivals would stare indeed could they see Toth-Amon of the Ring serving as a slave of an outlander, and an outlaw at that, and aiding in the petty ambitions of barons and kings. You laid your trust in magic and mummery, answered Ascalante carelessly. I trust my wits and my sword. Wits and swords are as straws against the wisdom of the darkness, growled the Stygian, his dark eyes flickering with menacing lights and shadows. Had I not lost the ring, our positions might be reversed. Nevertheless, answered the outlaw impatiently, you wear the stripes of my whip on your back and are likely to continue to wear them. Be not so sure. The fiendish hatred of the Stygian glittered for an instant redly in his eyes. Someday, somehow, I will find the ring again, and when I do, by the serpent fangs of Set you shall pay. The hot-tempered Aquilonian stood up and struck him heavily across the mouth. Thoth reeled back, blood starting from his lips. You grow overbold, dog, growled the outlaw. Have a care. I am still your master who knows your dark secret. Go upon the housetops and shout that Ascalante is in the city plotting against the king, if you dare. I dare not, muttered the Stygian, wiping the blood from his lips. No, you do not dare, Ascalante grinned bleakly, for if I die by your stealth or treachery, a hermit priest in the southern desert will know of it, and will break the seal of a manuscript I left in his hands. And having read, a word will be whispered in Stygia, and a wind will creep up from the south by midnight. And where will you hide your head, Thoth-Amon? The slave shuddered, and his dusky face went ashen. "Enough!" Ascalante changed his tone peremptorily. "I have work for you. I do not trust Dion. I bade him to ride to his country estate and remain there until the work is done tonight. The fat fool could never conceal his nervousness before the king today. Ride after him, and if you do not overtake him on the road, proceed to his estate and remain with him until we send for him. Don't let him out of your sight. He is mazed with fear and might bolt, might even rush to Conan in a panic, and reveal the whole plot, hoping thus to save his own hide. Go!" The slave bowed, hiding the hate in his eyes, and did as he was bidden. Ascalante turned again to his wine. Over the jeweled spires was rising a dawn crimson as blood. Chapter 2. When I was a fighting man, the kettle drums they beat, the people scattered gold dust before my horse's feet. But now I am a great king, the people hound my track, with poison in my wine cup, and daggers at my back, the road of kings. The room was large and ornate, with rich tapestries on the polished panel walls, deep rugs on the ivory floor, and with a lofty ceiling adorned with intricate carvings and silver scrollwork. Behind an ivory, gold-inlaid writing table sat a man whose broad shoulders and sun-browned skin seemed out of place amongst those luxuriant surroundings. He seemed more a part of the sun and winds and high places of the outlands. His slightest movement spoke of steel spring muscles knit to a keen brain with the coordination of a born fighting man. There was nothing deliberate or measured about his actions. Either he was perfectly at rest, still as a bronze statue, or else he was in motion, not with the jerky quickness of overtense nerves, but with a cat-like speed that blurred the sight which tried to follow him. His garments were of rich fabric, but simply made. He wore no ring or ornaments, and his square-cut black mane was confined merely by a cloth of silver band about his head. Now he laid down the golden stylus, which he had been laboriously scrawling on waxed papyrus, resting his chin on his fist, and fixed his smoldering blue eyes enviously on the man who stood before him. This person was occupied in his own affairs at the moment, for he was taking up the laces of his gold-chased armor, and abstractedly whistling, a rather unconventional performance considering that he was in the presence of a king. "Prospero," said the man at the table, "these matters of statecraft weary me as all the fighting I have done and ever did." "All part of the game, Conan," answered the dark-haired Poetanian. "You are king. You must play the part." "I wish I might ride with you to Numidia," said Conan enviously. "It seems like ages since I had a horse between my knees, but Publius says that affairs in the city require my presence. Curse him! When I overthrew the old dynasty," he continued, speaking with the easy familiarity which existed only between the Poetanian and himself, "it was easy enough, though it seemed bitter hard at the time. Looking back now over the wild path I followed, all those days of toil, intrigue, slaughter, and tribulation seem like a dream. I did not dream far enough, Prospero. When King Numidius lay dead at my feet, and I tore the crown from his gory head and set it upon my own, I had reached the ultimate border of my dreams. I had prepared myself to take the crown, not to hold it. In the old free days, all I wanted was a sharp sword and a straight path to my enemies. Now no paths are straight, and my sword is useless. When I overthrew Numidius, then I was the liberator. Now they spit at my shadow. They have put a statue of that swine in the temple of Mitra, and people go and wail before it, hailing it as the holy effigy of a saintly monarch who was done to death by a red-handed barbarian. When I led her armies to victory as a mercenary, Aquilonia overlooked the fact that I was a foreigner, but now she cannot forgive me. Now in Mitra's temple there come to burn incense to Numidius' memory, men whom his hangmen maimed and blinded, men whose sons died in his dungeons, whose wives and daughters were dragged into his Seraglio. The fickle fools! "Rinaldo is largely responsible," answered Prospero, drawing up his sword belt another notch. "He sings songs that make men mad. Hang him in the jester's garb to the highest tower of the city. Let him make rhymes for the vultures." Conan shook his lion head. "No, Prospero, he's beyond my reach. A great poet is greater than any king. His songs are mightier than my scepter, for he has near ripped the heart from my breast when he chose to sing for me. I shall die and be forgotten, but Rinaldo's songs will live forever." No, Prospero, the king continued, a somber look of doubt shadowing his eyes. There is something hidden, some undercurrent of which we are not aware. I sense it as in my youth I sensed the tiger hidden in the tall grass. There is a nameless unrest throughout the kingdom. I am like a hunter who crouches by his small fire amid the forest, and hears stealthy feet padding in the darkness, and almost sees the glimmer of burning eyes. If I could but come to grips with something tangible that I could cleave with my sword, I tell you, it's not by chance that the Picts have of late so fiercely assailed the frontiers, so that the Bosonians have called for aid to beat them back. I should have ridden with the troops. Publius feared a plot to trap and slay you beyond the frontier, replied Prospero, soothing his silken surcoat over his shining mail, and admiring his tall, lithe figure in a silver mirror. That's why he urged you to remain in the city. These doubts are born of your barbarian instincts. Let the people snarl. The mercenaries are ours, and the black dragons, and every rogue and Pontian swears by you. Your only danger is assassination, and that's impossible with the men of the imperial troops guarding you day and night. What are you working at there? A map, answered Conan with pride. The map of the court shows well the countries of south, east, and west, but in the north they are vague and faulty. I am adding to the northern lands myself. Here is Samaria, where I was born, and Asgard and Vanaheim. Prospero scanned the map. By Mitra, I'd almost believe those countries to have been fabulous. Conan grinned savagely, involuntarily touching the scars on his dark face. You had known otherwise, had you spent your youth in the northern frontiers of Samaria. Asgard lies to the north, and Vanaheim to the northwest of Samaria, and there is continual war along the borders. What manner of men are these northern folk? Asked Prospero. Tall and fair and blue-eyed. Their god is Ymir, the frost giant, and each tribe has its own king. They are wayward and fierce. They fight all day and drink ale and roar their wild songs all night. Then I think you are like them, laughed Prospero. You laugh greatly, drink deep, and bellow good songs, though I never saw another Cimmerian who drank aught but water, or who ever laughed, or ever sang save to give chant dismal dirges. Perhaps it's the land they live in, answered the king. A gloomier land never was, all of hills darkly wooded, under skies nearly always gray, with winds moaning drearily down the valleys. Little wonder men grow moody there, quoth Prospero with a shrug of his shoulders, thinking of the smiling sun-washed plains and blue lazy rivers of Potien, Aquilinia's southernmost province. They have no hope here or hereafter, answered Conan. The gods are Crom and his dark race, who rules over a sunless place of everlasting mist, which is the world of the dead. Mitra, the ways of the Aesir were more to my liking. Well, grinned Prospero, the dark hills of Samaria are far behind you, and now I go. I'll quaff a goblet of white Numidian wine for you at Numa's court. Good, grunted the king, but kiss Numa's dancing girls for yourself only, lest you involve the states. His gusty laughter followed Prospero out of the chamber. Chapter 3. Under the caverned pyramid's great set coils asleep, among the shadows of the tombs his dusky people creep. I speak the word from the hidden gulfs that never knew the sun. Send me a servant for my hate, O scaled and shining one. The sun was setting, etching the green and hazy blue of the forest in brief gold. The waning beams glinted on the thick golden chain which Dion of Atlas twisted continuously in his pudgy hand as he sat in the flaming riot of blossoms and flower trees which was his garden. He shifted his fat body on the marble seat and glanced furtively about, as if in quest of a lurking enemy. He sat within a circular grove of slender trees, whose interlapping branches cast a thick shade over him. Near at hand a fountain tinkered silverly, and other unseen fountains in various parts of the great garden whispered an everlasting symphony. Dion was alone, except for the great dusky figure which lounged on a marble bench close at hand, watching the Baron with deep, somber eyes. Dion gave little thought to Thothemon. He vaguely knew that he was a slave in whom Ascalante reposed much trust, but like so many rich men, Dion paid scant heed to men below his station in life. You need not be so nervous, said Thoth. The plan cannot fail. Ascalante can make mistakes as well as another, snapped Dion, sweating at the mere thought of failure. Not he, grinned the Stygian savagely. Else I had not been his slave, but his master. What talk is this? Peevishly returned Dion, with only half a mind on the conversation. Thoth-Amon's eyes narrowed. For all his iron self-control, he was near bursting with long pent-up shame, hate, and rage, ready to take any sort of desperate chance. What he did not reckon on was the fact that Dion saw him not as a human being with a brain and a wit, but simply a slave, and as such, a creature beneath notice. Listen to me, said Thoth. You will be king, but you know little of the mind of Ascalante. You cannot trust him once Conan is slain. I can help you. If you will protect me when you come to power, I will aid you. Listen, my lord, I was a great sorcerer in the south. Men spoke of Thoth-Amon as they spoke of Ramamon. King Ctesiphon of Stygia gave me great honor, casting down the magicians from the high places to exalt me above them. They hated me, but they feared me, for I controlled beings from outside which came at my call and did my bidding. But by Set, mine enemy knew not the hour when he might awake at midnight to feel the taloned fingers of a nameless horror at his throat. I did dark and terrible magic with the serpent ring of Set, which I found in a nighted tomb a league beneath the earth, forgotten before the first man crawled out of the slimy sea. But a thief stole the ring and my power was broken. The magicians rose up to slay me, and I fled. Disguised as a camel driver, I was traveling in a caravan in the land of Koth when Ascalante's reavers fell upon us. All in the caravan were slain except myself. I saved my life by revealing my identity to Ascalante and swearing to serve him. Bitter has been that bondage. To hold me fast, he wrote of me in a manuscript and sealed it and gave it to the hands of a hermit who dwells on the southern borders of Koth. I dare not strike a dagger into him while he sleeps or betray him to his enemies, for then the hermit would open the manuscript and read. Thus Ascalante instructed him, and he would speak a word in Stygia. Again Thoth shuddered, and an ashen hue tinged his dusky skin. Men knew me not in Aquilonia, he said, but should my enemies in Stygia learn my whereabouts, not the width of half of a world between us would suffice to save me from such a doom as would blast the soul of a bronze statue. Only a king with castles and hosts of swordsmen could protect me. So I have told you my secret, and urge that you make a pact with me, so that I can aid you with my wisdom, and you can protect me. And some day I will find the ring. Ring? Ring? Thoth has underestimated the man's utter egoism. Dion had not even been listening to the slave's words, so completely engrossed as he was in his own thoughts. But the final words stirred a ripple in his self-centeredness. Ring, he repeated. That makes me remember. My ring of good fortune. I had it from a Shemtish thief who swore he stole it from a wizard to the south, and that it would bring me luck. I paid him enough, Mitra knows. By the gods, I need all the luck I can have. What with Volmana and Ascalante dragging me into their bloody plots, I'll have to see through the ring. Thoth sprung up, blood mounting darkly to his face, while his eyes flamed with the stunned fury of a man who suddenly realizes the full depth of a fool's swinish stupidity. Dion never heeded him. Lifting a secret lid in a marble seat, he fumbled for a moment among a heap of gewgaws of various kinds. Barbaric charms, bits of bones, pieces of tawdry jewelry, luck pieces and conjures which the man's superstitious nature had prompted him to collect. Ah, here it is! He triumphantly lifted a ring of curious make. It was of a metal like copper, and was made in the form of a scaled serpent, coiled in 3 loops, with its tail in its mouth. In its eyes were yellow gems which glittered balefully. Thoth-Amon cried out as if he had been struck, and Dion wheeled and gaped, his face suddenly bloodless. The slave's eyes were burning, his mouth wide, his large, dusky hands outstretched like talons. "The ring! By Set! The ring!" he shrieked. "My ring stolen from me!" Steel glittered in the Stygian's hand, and with a heave of his great dusky shoulders, he drove a dagger into the baron's fat body. Dion's high, thin squeal broke in a strangled gurgle, and his whole flabby frame collapsed like melted butter. A fool to the end, he died in mad terror, not knowing why. Flinging aside the crumpled corpse, already forgetful of it, Thoth grasped the ring in both hands, his dark eyes blazing with a fearful avidness. "My ring," he whispered in terrible exultation. "My power!" How long he crouched over the baleful thing, motionless as a statue, drinking the evil aura of it into his dark soul, not even the Stygian knew. When he shook himself from his reverie and drew back his mind from the heightened abysses where it had been questing, the moon was rising, casting long shadows across the smooth marble black of the garden seat, at the foot of which sprawled the darker shadow which had been the lord of Attilas. "No more, Ascalante, no more," whispered the Stygian, and his eyes burned red as a vampire's in the gloom. Stooping, he cupped a handful of congealing blood from the sluggish pool in which his victim sprawled, and rubbed it in the copper serpent's eyes until the yellow sparks were covered by a crimson mask. "Blind your eyes, mystic serpent," he chanted in a blood-freezing whisper. "Blind your eyes to the moonlight, and open them on darker gulfs. What do you see, O serpent of Set? Whom do you call from the gulfs of the night, whose shadow falls on the waning light? Call him to me, O serpent of Set." Stroking the scales with a peculiar circular motion of his fingers, a motion which always carried the fingers back to their starting place, his voice sank lower as he whispered dark names and grisly incantations forgotten the world over save in the grim hinterlands of dark Stygia, where monstrous shapes move in the dusk of tombs. There was a movement in the air about him, such as a swirl as it made in water when some creature rises to the surface. A nameless freezing wind blew on him briefly, as if from an open door. Thoth felt a presence at his back, but he did not look about. He kept his eyes fixed on the moonlit space of marble, on which a tenuous shadow hovered. As he continued his whispered incantations, the shadow grew in size and clarity, until it stood out distinct and horrific. Its outline was not unlike that of a gigantic baboon, but no such baboon ever walked the earth, not even in Stygia. Still Thoth did not look, but drawing from his girdle a sandal of his master, always carried in the dim hope that he might be able to put it to such use, he cast it behind him. "Know it well, slave of the ring," he exclaimed. "Find him who wore it and destroy him. Look into his eyes and blast his soul before you tear out his throat. Kill him, aye, in a blind burst of passion, and all with him." Etched on the moonlit wall, Thoth saw the horror lower its misshapen head and take the scent like some hideous hound. Then the grisly head was thrown back, and the thing wheeled and was gone like a wind through the trees. The Stygian flung up his arms in maddened exultation, and his teeth and eyes gleamed in the moonlight. A soldier on guard without the walls yelled in startled horror as a great loping black shadow with flaming eyes cleared the wall and swept by him with a swirling rush of wind. But it was gone so swiftly that the bewildered warrior was left wondering whether it had been a dream or a hallucination. And that concludes the chapters I have available for the Phoenix on the Sword currently. I hope you've enjoyed listening, and I certainly hope it whetted your appetite for more. Thank you once again for watching and listening, and I hope you have a wonderful day.